yourself at home with next to nothing. Start cultivating a relationship with poverty. Dear guest, be bold enough to pay no heed to riches, and so make yourself like him, worthy of a god. For no one is worthy of a god unless he has paid no heed to riches. I am not, mind you, against your possessing them, but I want to ensure that you possess them without tremors. And this you will only achieve in one way, by convincing yourself that you can live a happy life even without them, and by always regarding them as being on the point of vanishing. But it's time I started folding up this letter. Not till you've settled your account, you say. Well, I'll refer you to Epicurus for payment. Anger carried to excess begets madness. How true this is, you're bound to know, having had both slaves and enemies. It is a passion, though, which flares up against all types of people. It is born of love as well as hate, and is as liable to arise in the course of sport or jesting as in affairs of a serious kind. The factor that counts is not the importance of the cause from which it springs, but the kind of personality it lands in the same way as with fire, what matters is not the fierceness of the flame, but where it catches. Solid objects may resist the fiercest flame, while, conversely, dry and inflammable matter will nurse a mere spark into conflagration. It is true, my dear Lucilius. The outcome of violent anger is a mental raving, and therefore anger is to be avoided, not for the sake of moderation, but for the sake of sanity. Letter number 26. It's only a short time since I was telling you I was in the sight of old age. Now I'm afraid I may have left old age behind me altogether. Some other term would be more in keeping now with my years, or at least my present physical state, since old age connotes a period of decline, not debility. Put me in the list of the decrepit, the ones on the very brink. However, I congratulate myself, mind you, on the fact that my age has not, so far as I'm aware, brought any deterioration in my spirit, conscious as I am of the deterioration in my constitution. Only my vices and their accessories have decayed. The spirit is full of life, and delighted to be having only limited dealings with the body. It has thrown off a great part of its burden. It's full of vigour, and carrying on an argument with me on the subject of old age, maintaining that these are its finest years. Let's accept what it says, and let it make the most of its blessings. It tells me to start thinking and examine how far I owe this serenity and sobriety to philosophy, and how far I owe it simply to my years, and to investigate with some care what things I really am refusing to do, and what I'm simply incapable of doing. And it's prepared to accept whatever I'm really pleased to find myself incapable of doing as equivalent to refusing to do them. And what cause can there be for complaint, after all, in anything that was always bound to come to an end, fading gradually away? What is troubling about that? Well, nothing, you may say, could be more troubling than the idea of our wasting and perishing away, melting out of existence, one may aptly call it, since we aren't struck down all of a sudden, but worn away every day that passes, diminishing in some degree our powers. Moving to one's end through nature's own gentle process of dissolution. Is there a better way of leaving life than that? Not because there is anything wrong with a sudden, violent departure, but because this gradual withdrawal is an easy route. Anyway, here's what I do. I imagine to myself that the testing time is drawing near, that the day that is going to see judgment pronounced on the whole of my past life has actually arrived, and I take a look at myself and address myself in these terms. All that I've done or said up to now counts for nothing. My showing to date, besides being heavily varnished over, is a paltry value and reliability as a guarantee of my spirit. I'm going to leave it to death to settle what progress I've made. Without anxiety, then, I'm making ready for the day when the tricks and disguises will be put away, and I shall come to a verdict on myself, determining whether the courageous attitudes I adopt are really felt, or just so many words, and whether or not the defiant challenges I've hurled at fortune have been mere pretense and pantomime. Away with the world's opinion of you. It's always unsettled and divided. Away with the pursuits that have occupied the whole of your life. Death is going to deliver the verdict in your case. Yes, all your debates and learned conferences, your scholarly talk and collection of maxims from the teachings of philosophers are in no way indicative of genuine spiritual strength. Bold words come even from the timidest. It's only when you're breathing your last that the way you've spent your time will become apparent. I accept the terms and feel no dread of the coming judgment. That's what I say to myself, but assume that I've said it to you as well. You're younger than I am, but what difference does that make? No count is taken of years. Just where death is expecting you is something we cannot know. So, for your part, expect him everywhere. I was just intending to stop, my hand considering its closing sentence, but the accounts have still to be made out, and this letter issued with its travelling expenses. You may assume that I won't be announcing the source I intend borrowing from. You know whose funds I'm drawing on. Give me a fraction more time, and payment will be made out of my own pocket. In the meantime, Epicurus will oblige me with the following saying: rehearse death, or the idea may come across to us rather more satisfactorily if put in this form. It is a very good thing to familiarize oneself with death. Well, you may possibly think it unnecessary to learn something which you will only have to put into practice once. That is the very reason why we ought to be practicing it. We must needs continually study a thing if we are not in a position to test whether we know it. Rehearse death. To say this is to tell a person to rehearse his freedom. A person who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. He is above, or at any rate beyond, the reach of all political powers. What are prisons, warders, bars to him? He has an open door. There is but one chain holding us in fetters, and that is our love of life. There is no need to cast this love out altogether, but it does need to be lessened somewhat, so that in the event of circumstances ever demanding this, nothing may stand in the way of our being prepared to do at once what we must do at some time or other. Letter number 27. So you're giving me advice, are you, you say? Have you already given yourself advice, then? Have you already put yourself straight? Is that how you come to have time for reforming other people? No, I'm not so shameless as to set about treating people when I'm sick myself. I'm talking to you as if I were lying in the same hospital ward about the illness we're both suffering from and passing on some remedies. So listen to me as if I were speaking to myself. I'm allowing you access to my inmost self, calling you in to advise me as I have things out with myself. I proclaim to my own self, count your years, and you'll be ashamed to be wanting and working for exactly the same things as you wanted when you were a boy. Of this one thing make sure against your dying day, that your faults die before you do. Have done with those unsettled pleasures which cost one dear. They do one harm after they're past and gone, not merely when they're in prospect. Even when they're over, pleasures of a depraved nature are apt to carry feelings of dissatisfaction, in the same way as a criminal's anxiety doesn't end with the commission of the crime, even if it's undetected at the time. Such pleasures are insubstantial and unreliable. Even if they don't do one any harm, they're fleeting in character. Look around for some enduring good instead. And nothing answers this description except what the spirit discovers for itself within itself. A good character is the only guarantee of everlasting, carefree happiness. Even if some obstacle to this comes on the scene, its appearance is only to be compared to that of clouds, which drift in front of the sun without ever defeating its light. How soon will you be fortunate enough to attain this happiness? Well, you haven't been dragging your steps up to now, but your pace could be increased. There's a lot of work remaining to be done, and if you want to be successful, you must devote all your waking hours and all your efforts to the task personally. This is not something that admits of delegation. It is a different branch of learning which has room for deviling. There was a rich man called Calvisius Sabinus in my own lifetime who had a freedman's brains along with a freedman's fortune. I have never seen greater vulgarity in a successful man. His memory was so bad that at one moment or another the names of Ulysses or Achilles or Priam, characters he knew as well as we knew our early teachers, would slip his memory. No doddering butler ever went through the introductions of a mass of callers committing quite such solecisms, not announcing people as I did with the Greek and Trojan heroes. They're a well-read man, and to this end he thought up the following shortcut. He spent an enormous amount of money on slaves, one of them to know Homer by heart, another to know Hesiod, while he assigned one apiece to each of the 9 lyric poets. That the cost was enormous is hardly surprising. Not having found what he wanted in the market, he had them made to order. After this collection of slaves had been procured for him, he began to give his dinner guests nightmares. He would have these fellows at his elbow so that he could continually be turning to them for quotations from these poets, which he might repeat to the company, and then, it happened frequently, he would break down halfway through a word. Tertullius Quadratus, who regarded stupid millionaires as fair game to be sponged off, and consequently also fair game for flattery, as well as, and this goes with the other 2 things, fair game for facetiousness at their expense, suggested to him that he should keep a team of scholars to pick up